ניכנס כעת לשיעור בתלמוד 10 הספירות עם הרבש, נקרא מתוך
We will enter a lesson on Tess with Rabash. We will read from Tess Volume 2, Part 5.
הגענו לאור פנימי של אות מ'.
We are in the inner light for item 40,
את הזין אורות. לפני כן,
starting from and he gave her the 7 lights. Before that, we will read item 40 from the words of the Ari.
אות מ'.
Item 40.
ואחר כך, חוזר
Afterwards, the light returns to being mati, expanding in Keter. And then both Chokhmah and Binah ascend there because of the desire they have. Then you find that there is a great distance between the sons and the light of Gal. For there are 2 distances between them, Bina and Chokhmah, in which there is no light. Hence, at that time, the light of Chesed rises to Bina and is called not Mati in Chesed. In that state, the vessel of Chesed turns its anterior and gives the 6 lights below in Gvura. Let's enter the lesson.
What's written here? He's explaining to us what's written above. At the time when the vessel of Chokhmah was refined from phase 2 of coarseness to phase 1 of coarseness, it received equivalence of form from the vessel of Binah. We need to remember the rule we learned, that here the discussion is from the vessels that remained in Parzuf Galgalta, and the records remained in the vessels. In the vessel of Keter, there was phase 4 there. Phase 3 of coarseness remained. Phase 4 remained only phase 4 of clothing and the phase 3 of coarseness. In the vessel of Chokhmah, in phase 3 illuminates, phase 3 of clothing and phase 2 of coarseness remain in the vessel of Chokhmah. In the vessel of Binah, phase 2 of coarseness was illuminating in Parzuf Galgalta. Phase 2 of clothing and phase 1 of coarseness remained. Therefore, now comes out Parzuf Ab that the vessel of Chokhmah had phase 2 of coarseness that was refined to the phase of coarseness. Through this filled the record that is the vessel of Binah, phase 1 of coarseness. This is called face to face, meaning both are in the same way. But we learn that there's another matter of face-to-face. We learn that the anterior of Keter and Chasadim posterior, as for Chokhmah. The interior of Chokhmah is Chokhmah. Therefore, at the time when Keter needs to bestow to Chokhmah, we learn the vessel of Keter was refined from phase 4, 3, phase 3, 2, then the interior. It's similar to the vessel of Chokhmah that was only phase 2 of coarseness, phase 3, 2. And there's another matter of turning interior. Its interior was at Keter of Chasadim. Its interior turned now, its interior upward, its posterior downward. Meaning posterior, it gives from its posterior Chokhmah, it gives Chokhmah to Chokhmah. That is, its interior upward. What was in the vessel of Keter? Its interior is Chasadim. So its interior downward in importance and posterior upward in importance. Meaning, it operates now from posterior with Chokhmah, similar to the vessel of Chokhmah, that once Chokhmah. Therefore, there's equivalence of form from two aspects, one from coarseness, one from the lights. That Chokhmah was refined from phase 2 to phase 1. There's equivalence from the aspect of coarseness, Chokhmah, phase 1, and Binah, phase 1 of coarseness. Also, from the side of the lights, what is the anterior of Chokhmah? Chokhmah, and its posterior, Chasadim. Now, its interior was also downward in importance. Posterior, Chasadim, is inimportant, upward in importance, meaning it operates now with Chasadim. Therefore, what did Chokhmah give to Binah? Only Chasadim. In that state, he gave her 7 lights of Ziranpin that are now incorporated in the first light of Chesed. Thus, the light of Chesed is found in the vessel of Binah. Again, in that state, he gave 7 lights that are from Chesed and downward until Malchut, that are now incorporated in the first light of Chesed in the first Chesed. As we learned before, Keter gives Chokhmah 9 lights, and Chokhmah 8 lights, but previously Chokhmah gave to Binah illumination alone. It gave phase 2 of clothing called Binah. What else remains? 7. The 7 container is incorporated in the upper phase. What is the upper phase? Chagat Nehi, Chesed. This is what he says there. Thus, the light Chesed is now found in the vessel of Binah. You must remember that besides the light of Chesed, that is, in the vessel of Binah, there are 2 other lights that precede it in that vessel of Binah. They are the male, born from the coupling of Zon, of the vessel of Chokhmah, meaning phase 2 of clothing and phase 2 of coarseness, that produced a level of light which is truly phase 2, which is the level of light of Binah, like the female itself from Chokhmah, which is phase 2 of coarseness. Why? That it emerged on the level of phase 2 of coarseness and phase 2 of clothing. However, since it is born through the turning of the interior of the vessel of Chokhmah as above, in the Ari's words, and in the inner light there, section beginning Chokhmah turned to her interior, and therefore it is considered the phase of Vak of Chokhmah. And then Chokhmah tuned to her interior after it received 9 lights, and Chokhmah illuminates to Binah face to face. Illumination alone. What's the meaning of Chokhmah turned her interior? He wants to say now, illumination alone, but doesn't give it yet the 7 lights. So what's written there? Face to face. It gives illumination alone. Now I'm repeating. You must remember that besides this light of Chesed that it gave now from the vessel of Chokhmah, after it was refined from phase 2 of coarseness to phase 1 of coarseness, there are 2 other lights that precede it before it was refined from phase 2 of coarseness to phase 1 of coarseness. Except what? It still had phase 2 of clothing and phase 2 of coarseness, which now has refined from phase 3 of clothing, gives it 2 lights. They are male, born from the coupling of Zon of the vessel of Chokhmah, that there the vessel of Binah, which is truly phase 2. Why phase 2? Which is the level of the light of Binah, like the female itself of Chokhmah. What is female of Chokhmah? Phase 2 of coarseness. If so, on phase 2 of coarseness, a level of light emerged. However, since it is born through the turning of the interior of the vessel of Chokhmah, because the vessel of Chokhmah, phase 3 of clothing, was already refined to phase 2 of clothing, as above in the Ari's words. Therefore, it is considered as phase of Vak of Chokhmah. Chokhmah was phase 3 too. From what was it born? From phase 2 of clothing. Therefore, it is considered Vak of Chokhmah. Clear? You should also know that he is the root of Israel, Saba, and all the Parzufim. We learn that from Chazeh upward is called Abba, Gal. From Chazeh downward it's called Vak. Vak of Chokhmah is called Israel Saba. This is one. And yet another, there before it was refined from phase 2 of coarseness to phase 1 of coarseness. The second light there, that is in the vessel of Binah, which is a record of the vessel of Binah that exists there from the time of the first expansion. So he explains, besides the screen being incorporated with all the records that are in those vessels as it travels to the emanator, it is certain that the majority of the records remained in their place in their own vessels and did not ascend with the screen to the emanator. That record that remained in the vessel is the phase of the female that exists in the vessel of Binah. And here it seems it's only a record alone, but apparently it seems the record draws the light, and here it's not written. You should also know that she, the record that remained in the vessel of Binah, is the root of all the phases of Tuvuna and all the Parzufim. We learned that in the vessel of Binah, there are two lights called male and female. Here the meaning of male, female, the meaning is not clothing and coarseness, but another meaning. Male is called light, abundance, and female is called a record, what remains. And he says that the record of clothing that remained in the vessel of Binah from the light of Keter that was illuminating in Parzuf Galgalta is considered Gal, because there Gal of lights illuminates. Unlike the light of the male that comes now, it's in turning of anterior, only Vak. So he says that the light of Israel, Saba, will be the light of Vak, although it's male, and Vuna, which he calls female, which is the aspect of the record of clothing, is Gal. Therefore, we'll learn afterwards that he says both become Hey. The record is called Daled. This is the aspect of Gal. And the refined light is Vav in the Hey. We'll learn this afterwards. Clear?
That record that remained in the vessel of Binah from Parzuf Galgalta, this record, and you should also know that she is the root of all the phases of Tvuna in all the Partsufim. However, this light of Chesed that Chokhmah now bestowed upon Binah, what is now, after it was refined from phase 2 of coarseness to phase 1 of coarseness, is considered the son of Binah, and not as her actual self. Why? Bina is called vessels of Gar, Keter Chochma Bina, and this light is called Zeranpin. Therefore, it's considered a son and a progeny, although it's found in the vessel of Bina, not her actual phase, which is considered Gar, the first three, not Zeranpin, and this, it's Zeranpin. Vessels of Gar, or when I say Zeranpin, he always says Bina divides into Gar of Bina and Zat of Bina. It seems Keter Chochma Bina in Zeranpin has another meaning. We learn in the vessels of Keter Chochma Bina, they are considered the first three. Zeranpin uses Gar in the name of completeness, which includes Vak also. But if he says Vak, the first three are lacking. Now, what's the point in this? He says thus. Keter, Chochma Bina are complete lights from direct light. Keter is considered his desire to do good to his creatures. The bestower is called Keter. Chochma is called the abundance that the emanator, that Keter, gives. Chochma is one type, and Bina is called Chasadim, a second type. So we have three essentials, Keter, Chochma, Bina. What is Zeranpin? A thing composed of two things. Light of Chasadim with illumination of Chochma, meaning it's already called small. The meaning of the matter, he says, we learn, in truth, every level is incorporated with its companion. Keter is incorporated from all, and Chochma is incorporated from all. And Bina is incorporated from all, and Zeranpin is incorporated from all. And we must also say Malchut is incorporated from all, certainly. Except what? There's a rule about what isn't novel, we don't speak. Therefore, what Keter is incorporated from Chochma, Bina, tell me that the light illuminates in Chochma Bina, it illuminates in Keter. Just as the light illuminates in Zeranpin, it illuminates in Keter. There's no novelty here. And likewise illuminates in Chochma, and likewise illuminates in Bina. No novelty. But on the contrary, what Zeranpin is incorporated from Keter, already there's novelty. Meaning it illuminates to it from the aspect of Zeranpin, no longer Keter. It has Keter in Zeranpin. Therefore, it has another name, Chesed. What's incorporated from Chochma is from Zeranpin, not as it illuminates in Chochma. This is called Gvura. And what illuminates, what's incorporated from Bina, also from Zeranpin, is called Tiferet. Thus, Chagat is called the aspect of Zeranpin, meaning what's incorporated from the upper ones in Zeranpin, and its own phase is Netzach, and what's incorporated from Malchut is called Hod. And there is Yesod, a container. He doesn't explain why there must be such a thing. And so, he says, when in Bina, we distinguish in it what is her actual phase. It's called Gal, not Zaranpin. And she's also incorporated in what she needs to give to Zaranpin. If so, what she needs to give to Zaranpin is not her phase. This is a son and progeny. But since these will receive from the lower one, they're still found in Bina. But what? Here there's a change. When we speak in Partzuf Galgalta, the first Partzuf that emerged, the light of Keter in the vessel of Keter and the light of Bina in the vessel of Bina, then we say the light of Chesed stands as if in corporeal imagery below the Sefirah of Bina. But here, where we learn that the light of Ab filled the empty vessels from Partzuf Galgalta, and since here coarseness of phase 4 was lacking and only the level of Ab emerged, then it's considered the light of Chokhmah in the vessel of Keter, and the light of Bina in the vessel of Chokhmah, and the light of Chesed in the vessel of Bina. Therefore, phase 1 comes out, called the light of Zaranpin, found in Bina. But after all, this is not her phase, this is Zaranpin in the vessel of Gal. Therefore, he says thus, however, this light of Chesed that Chokhmah now bestowed upon Bina, through being refined from phase 2 of coarseness to phase 1 of coarseness called Zaranpin, this light, is considered the son of Bina, and not as her actual self. Keep in mind the relationship between the zon in the vessel of Chokhmah with the zon that are in the vessel of Bina. No, this is not as I said. Again, keep in mind the relationship between the zon in the vessel of Chokhmah with the zon that are in the vessel of Bina, since in truth they are a light of the same level of Bina. However, zone of Bina relate to zone of Chokhmah as Israel, Saba, Vetvuna relate to upper Abavema. The Ishsut are only the Vak of Abavema themselves, although both are considered one level of coarseness of phase 2. What's written here? Here is like this. We've now learned after phase 3 of the vessel of Chokhmah was refined to phase 2 of clothing, it now has male, female of the vessel of Chokhmah, phase 2 of clothing and phase 2 of coarseness. And afterwards a coupling was made on these two phases, and light of one level emerged on phase 2 of coarseness. And this level was given to whom? To Bina. What gave to Bina? That was refined from phase 3 of clothing to phase 2 of clothing. A level emerged on the phase. How do we say? The level of Bina emerged, but only Vak was given. And why is this called Vak? We need to explain a bit. Once he says it's called Vak, since a level that emerged in the upper one and gives to the lower one is Vak. Here we learned it's called Vak. Why? Since Chokhmah gave this light through turning of interior, What is turning of interior? Previously, Chokhmah was phase 3, and now it's phase 2. Thus, compared to this, it's Vak. But this is not similar to the second. In the first explanation, even though both are 2 phases, nevertheless, the upper one is called Vgal and it's Vak since its progeny is in the upper one. And in this explanation that they return to her interior, it seems it's because Chokhmah has phase 3 and didn't have phase 2. From here, he says, it seems as we said before, meaning he says that the same level in Chokhmah, the same level is in Bina. But what does he add here? There we learned there are male, female in the vessel of Chokhmah. Phase 2 of clothing and phase 2 of coarseness. And the light emerged on these 2 phases called a level of phase 2, but it's Vak. This is called male. And what is its female in the vessel of Binah? So we've now learned the phase 2 of clothing that remained to it from the first expansion, from Parzuf Galgalta, from phase 3, this is also 2 phases. So this is similar to that. But he says, there it's Gal and here it's Vak. By what force is it here Vak? We must say progeny of the level that emerged in the vessel of Chokhmah. Clear?
נעבור לחלק הבא של השיעור, לימוד בין חברים.
Let's go to the next